The dreams of winter are about to face the tough test of reality for the CART FedEx Championship Series. There have been many changes since we last saw the Champ cars. But that long wait is now over. CART is ready to go.
Alex Zanardi, the man who brought so much excitement, so much charisma in winning back-to-back championships in this series for Chip Ganassi Racing, has now gone to F1. But his rookie replacement, Juan Montoya, shows sensational promise. And don't forget, his teammate, Jimmy Vasser, won a championship for Ganassi just 3 years ago. This team is fast, they're focused, they are ready to go.
If you want to win the championship in 1999, you'll have to figure out a way to beat that Ganassi team. But there are plenty of bona fide contenders. Think about the front row today. We have Greg Moore, Adrian Fernandez. They won 2 apiece last season. And the hottest guy at the end of last year, winning 3 of the last 6, Dario Franchitti. With Zanardi out of the way, they are ready to go.
The moment is at hand, the start of the season. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page, and joining us for the coverage this year, Parker Johnstone, who's retired from the championship series after 21 years behind the wheel. Now, Michael Andretti and his team are taking an incredible gamble here, moving to a different tire brand just a few weeks before the start of the season.
Well, that's right, Paul. They've switched to Firestones, but Michael and that Newman-Haas team, they put it in the top 5 in qualifying. They're ready to go. There's no doubt this is the most exciting competitive open wheel series in the world. It's about to start, and I'm ready to go.
From the Homestead Miami Speedway, we are ready for the start of the series as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. A beautiful, crystal clear day. Let's take a look at how they have qualified for the run here today. On the front row, the pole is Greg Moore. He won 2 races last year, as did Adrian Fernandez, who will start on the outside of the front row. Patrick Carpentier on the inside of row 2, and Elio Castroneves on the outside. In row 3, Michael Andretti, who has won the past 2 races here, and Cristiano D'Amata with a Toyota engine. In row 4, Dario Franchitti, and the brand new rookie partner to Jimmy Vasser, Juan Montoya. Jimmy Vasser is on row 5. Alongside is Mauricio Gugelmin. In the 6th row, Brian Herta and Nikoi Hattori. In row 7, Mark Blundell and Al Unser Jr., the lone Penske entry this year. In the 8th row, Max Pappas replacing Bobby Rahal and Christian Fittipaldi. Row 9, Tony Kanaan and Robbie Gordon with his brand new team. The 10th row is Richie Hearn and Raul Boisel substituting for Paul Tracy. In the 11th row, P.J. Jones and Scott Pruitt. Row 12, Alex Barron and Luis Garcia Jr. In the 13th row, Gilles de Ferran, who crashed and was not able to qualify, and Dennis Vitolo. And in the 14th row, Michel Jourdain Jr. That's the way they have qualified. Now, 1.502, a little over a mile and a half on the track. The race distance, 150 laps. A full second is all that covers first through 20th position. And they expect the first pit stops to come, well, at least waiting till the 45th lap. Now, let's take a look at the onboard cameras that we've got lined up for you here today.
Today we'll be on board with the Toyota Renard of Scott Pruitt. He was second quickest in the morning warm-up. This is the view that we'll see from the Toyota Swift of Richie Hearn. Our 96 Series champion, Jimmy Vasser, with his Honda Renard. And next up, the teammate of Jimmy, Juan Montoya, the only rookie in this field without any oval experience. And finally, starting on that new set of Firestone tires, is the Ford Swift of Michael Andretti. He's won 3 of the last 5 season openers.
We're going to be paying very special attention to Juan Montoya, especially in the first laps, because he's never taken a start on an oval. And what's everybody saying? He won't breathe for a lap or two?
Well, that's right, Paul. I think young Juan's in for a big surprise. The methanol that's used to power these cars is toxic in that it's difficult to breathe. Your eyes start to tear. I guarantee you, despite his Formula One test experience, he's never felt turbulence or speed like he's about to get when the when the green flag comes out.
Let's go down to Jan Bikas.
Well, we talk about bona fide contenders for the championship. Remember, one of those would be Paul Tracy. But Paul Tracy not behind the wheel today. Raul Boesel is subbing for him. I know that Paul Tracy will be very, very glad when this little departure from the cockpit is over.
Greg Moore, the pole sitter. Fernandez on the outside. Moore's teammate, Carpentier, just behind him. They come off the corner. They look for the green flag. And here we go. The season is now underway. Greg Moore takes the conventional line into one. Adrian Fernandez drops into second, but Helio Castroneves drops into third. Whoa, car was trouble up against the wall. Looks like two cars overcoming off of two, and one of them looks decidedly like a Penske car. Al Unser Jr. climbs out of his machine.
And Naoki Hattori up against Al on the wall. We also have Raul Boesel down in the grass with Richie Hearn as a result of that incident.
So one corner, and by the time they're into two, some serious problems back in the field. Greg Moore took the lead. Kart safety team, Lon Bromley and his group right there. They check with Hattori first. And now with Al Unser Jr., right side of that car is severely damaged. Hattori on the left, Al Unser Jr. over on the right. So if we can take a look at this thing overhead, maybe we can figure it out, Parker.
Well, it looks, Paul, like Naoki just started to use up the track. He didn't see that Al was very close on the right side of his car. It doesn't take much. This is Naoki's first start in a champ car, and just that quick, they're into the fence. You can see the disgust from Al Unser Jr. as he tosses the wheel out of the car. What a disheartening way for Al to start his season.
Garcia in the pits. We'll keep track of that as well. The field now slowed under the caution. Greg Moore, who had taken the lead, followed by Fernandez and then Castroneves. Then Michael Andretti was able to move into fourth place by the time they got to the second corner and this accident. Now we'll take a look at it from Scott Pruitt's car.
You know, Paul, it looks like they just got wheel to wheel there. And you can see they were still three abreast trying to get through that corner, but it looks like they just got a little close. Naoki washed up. Even an inch here is critical, and that's all it took to make that wheel-to-wheel contact. You can do that in fendered cars. You can't do it in a champ car.
And the mid-pack situation, of course, is why you want to qualify up at the front of the field if you at all can, is not to get caught up in one of these. So under the caution here. Now let's go to our Wide World of Sports studio and John Saunders. Miami Speedway, we're still under a caution. The yellow flag flies because of that four-car incident on the start of the race. So we're going to show you the standings, really only down to turn number 2. That's as far as they got, with Moore jumping from the pole, leading the race, but some movement certainly behind him. And of those involved in the incident, we have a listing of those. Now, Al Unser Jr. started to climb out of the car, but then it took a little while before they actually got him out. So those are those involved, and exactly what happened, what created this situation on the start.
Well, with the benefit of replay, we can see Naoki Hattori low, Al Unser Jr. right here ends up clipping the back of Naoki's car, puts Al into the wall, Naoki in the wall. Then later on, we can see Raul Boesel gets involved, turning sideways right in this area, and here comes Luis Garcia Jr. They end up making contact as Richie Hearn, just in front of them, loses control trying to avoid the mess. He kept it running, got back to the pits. Now we're on board with Richie Hearn. Let's see what happened from his perspective.
All right, so we're very close now to the green flag once again, but first let's get some updates. Jan Bikas.
Well, first of all, on some of the other cars involved, Raul Boesel, although the car was rolling, the front suspension was damaged beyond repair. The same thing for Luis Garcia. Also spoke to the Penske crew, and they said that Al did not say anything on the radio, but you could see that the steering wheel was out of the car before he had a chance. They have taken both of the drivers, Naoki Hattori and Al Jr., and they have been airlifted to the hospital, Paul.
So the green flag comes out. We'll continue to update you on those situations. Again, it's Greg Moore leading Adrian Fernandez and Helio Castroneves. Michael Andretti sitting back in fourth place. You saw Patrick Carpentier start a move. There he is in the blue and white car, and then fell in behind Michael.
Patrick Carpentier, third back to fifth. I tell you, Paul, Robbie Gordon went from 18th to 11th. They dropped him back to 13th with the reshuffling of the yellow. He's continuing to make progress.
We'll keep track of Robbie Gordon, that new team in a car with very, very little time and certainly no test mileage on the car for Robbie Gordon. Now, what about Raul Boisel, Gary Gerald?
Well, Raul is okay. We can tell you that. What happened from your seat? Apparently just no place to go.
Yeah, exactly, Gary. I just saw the crash in front of me. I tried to avoid it, came low, and my car got sideways. I have almost saved it pretty much, and then I got hit from the left on my left front suspension. So short day for the Cool Green car 26.
Sorry, thank you very much. And Jan?
Well, Gary, now we have Dr. Olvey. Do you have an update for us on Naoki and also on Al?
Yes, Naoki has a fracture, fairly bad fracture of his left lower leg. Al Jr. has a fracture of his right lower leg. Both drivers are awake, and at this time it doesn't look like there are other injuries, but he's going to the Rider Trauma Center in Miami, where they'll do further x-rays and tests, and we'll know more in a little while.
Thank you, Dr. Olvey.
Well, that's just terrible news at the start of the season. Just 2 laps. 2 guys, both promising with fractures, and Al Unser Jr. That's going to create some interesting conversation, I would guess, over at the Penske camp, and make you wonder if Andre Ribeiro might be making a return from his business ventures down in South America if Al cannot be ready for the second race of the season.
Well, we've got some good battles forming up on the track. We see that rookie Cristiano D'Amata, with his 6th place qualifying, the highest Toyota qualifying position ever, is engaged with a great fight with Dario Franchitti, one of this year's championship contenders, and behind them is Juan Montoya. I'm sure he's never seen a race like this. His perspective has got to be quite incredible, Paul.
On board with Montoya now. Just ride a lap or 2 with him. We'll get you updated on a couple of other things. He was running the car as loose as he could during practice and qualifying.
Watch his hands as he comes down into 3 and 4. Paul, with the other onboard cameras, we'll see that the drivers have a lot more steering input, but Juan has been running this car neutral to loose. Occasionally you'll see the steering wheel come back to straight ahead, even to the right when he's in the middle of the corner. And for oval racing, it may be quick for a lap, but eventually you're going to taste that concrete on the outside, and it does not taste good.
Montoya runs in 8th. That's Dario Franchitti just ahead, and Cristiano D'Amata ahead of Franchitti. The order, no change. Moore, Fernandez, Castroneves, Andretti, Carpentier. That's the top 5.
Paul, I had a chance to talk with Tom Anderson, the technical manager for Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Oh, and we see Dario Franchitti finally gets by rookie D'Amata going into turn 1. A great move by Dario. He set him up with a good draft going down the straightaway. But Tom Anderson told me that his greatest hope is that this race runs green for a long period of time, because he thinks all these cars will go from their initial understeer to loose. Jimmy and Juan are ready for it. And watch Gil DeFerrin. He's come up from the back of the pack. Now he's in 17th place, Paul.
Now remember, DeFerrin not only started in the back of the pack. Another piece of information for you, he went into the pits and refueled that car on the 14th lap. That was during the caution. We're now at the 25th lap, so he is going to be out of sequence. Derek Walker, his car owner, already playing a little race strategy, something he is very good at.
Well, Gil, even though involved in that crash yesterday when he had a motor problem, is very confident. He told me on that lap in qualifying, Paul, he came off at turn 4 faster than he ever has. There's been a lot of talk about Goodyear and Firestone. Gil's confident, not only in his car, his team, but also in those tires. And here he comes, running up behind P.J. Jones.
There's Gil DeFerrin, moves on P.J. Jones now, comes to the inside, can't get the job done, loses a little bit of momentum there.
He's got to set him up, Paul. He's got to fall back, get out of that aerodynamic turbulence, and try to use that Honda's engine to its best advantage to try to draft him down the straightaway. It might take him another lap or two, but it looks like he's going to try to set up a move going down the inside of turn 1.
DeFerrin up 10 positions from the start of the race, now battling for 16th with P.J. Jones. At the front of the field, it is still Greg Moore being chased by Adrian Fernandez and then Helio Castroneves. So the season now finally is underway. We'll be back. We're back at Homestead Miami Speedway as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. Paul Page with Parker Johnstone down in the pits. Jan Vikas and Gary Gerald watching the leader, Greg Moore, as now he begins to overhaul slower traffic. So a traffic situation critical for the leader because some of these guys he hasn't had a chance to roll up on before, what it being the first race of the season, and certainly may not be totally familiar with the combinations that he sees.
That's right. I mean, from a driver's perspective, you have to know what that other driver is going to do. Greg Moore is infamous for running very, very close when he passes you. We see him coming up behind Michel Jourdain Jr., clean pass going down the straightaway. It's going to take a few races before these guys dance comfortably.
Now, a little further back, remember when we left you, P.J. Jones and Bill DeFerrin were going at one another. They still are. In fact, there's been no changes in the order since we left. DeFerrin has crept up a couple of times like this, and that's what's happened in almost every change that he has an opportunity to try and get a position on. PJ just not able to do it.
All weekend long, Paul, the wind has been blowing from the east. It affects the cars because as you drive into the wind, it pins the nose. As you go down with a tailing wind, it tends to let the car wash out. Well, today, the wind's blowing from the west. We see DeFerrin very strong coming off of turn 4. He's been trying to set up PJ. He's in the draft. He's having a look to the inside, and he finally gets it done wheel to wheel going down into turn 1.
Boy, he had to earn that one, though. He'd been fighting for that for several laps. Now, back up at the front of the field, still running in third is Helio Castroneves. Jan Vikas, you have an update.
Well, I sure do, Paul. I think there's a whole lot of people that thought that possibly with that Lola chassis and with very little testing that the qualifying on the second row was a fluke. Well, Helio Castroneves and the Hogan Racing crew have definitely showed that was no fluke. They're competitive. And in fact, they say at the moment they are saving a tremendous amount of fuel with their Mercedes power plant.
And Jan, right on that theme, Adrian Fernandez, no chatter on the radio. They like the way the car is working. And now with that extended yellow, it pushes the fuel window up to about lap 64. That's about 14, 15 laps further than they anticipated at the start of the race.
So the strategy and the tactics are already beginning to play. What with DeFerrin being out of the order, moving through the field around P.J. Jones, now looking at Christian Fittipaldi. We're going to look back in the field once again, take a look at the 33 car of Patrick Carpentier as he chases Michael Andretti in a battle for 4th place.
Patrick Carpentier has come into the season with renewed confidence. He was quickest at spring training, and here we see him look down the inside of Michael Andretti, pick up the draft off Richie Hearn, and now he's got him going down the inside of turn 3. That's the renewed confidence I just mentioned of Patrick Carpentier.
And what a wonderful tactical move it was as well. Duck in behind Hearn, pick up the draft for a second, increase your peak speed toward the end, and cruise right on by. I'm a little surprised Michael didn't try that first.
It shows you that youth and exuberance sometimes makes up for experience because Patrick Carpentier is on the move. He had 2 oval poles last year, had a difficult season, but he's determined to turn that around this year, and you see him doing that right now as he runs in 4th place.
You take a look at the Carpentier car, as well as, of course, his teammate. We'll take a look at Granchini and D'Amata, but I was going to mention that you notice that there's no name on the side of the car. What with all the lawsuits and the legislation over the tobacco industry, that car can no longer carry the player's name on the side, but they can carry the logo. It was a major change for the decal department right at the last minute. And that after they had changed all the decals on the car earlier, just because they had a different livery they wanted to dress out.
Otario Franchitti's definitely making headway on Michael Andretti. Now, we talked about earlier that the Swifts have had an inherent understeer problem on all the Firestone runners. Well, Michael's been doing all the Swift development on Goodyears. He's now switched to Firestones. I talked to their technical engineering department yesterday. They said that he does have a problem with understeer. I think that that's really starting to hurt him at this stage of the race. And here comes Dario Franchitti. Gary?
Richie Hearn coming in. The car was so ill handling that they wanted to come in and make another tire change. Now they're checking all the suspension parts at the rear of the vehicle. And this is a long stop. Richie already had that earlier problem you documented with the spin, trying to avoid that problem on the opening lap.
Shut it off, Richie.
And I think I heard him tell him to shut it off. Yep, that's the case. Engine just died.
Now, you saw it take a pretty good bounce when he got into the spin between 1 and 2. And they're taking a look back at the under tray, especially in the left rear of the car. Jan Bikas?
Well, you've been talking about Dario Franchitti and his run towards Michael Andretti. The crew says that the balance is absolutely perfect, the handling they're referring to. I asked them if they were saving fuel. They said, well, somewhat. So some guys are out there running hard. Others are trying to conserve already.
Carpentier continues to work on Michael Andretti. They just came around Dennis Vitolo. And in fact, Cristiano D'Amata comes out and around Vitolo as well, trying to get back into this fight.
Jan mentioned fuel. Dario Franchitti has the uncanny knack to run faster than anybody else in the field with the least amount of fuel, something that his predecessor, Jacques Villeneuve, was also able to do. I don't know how he's figured it out, but he's brilliant. And we see that he's trying to work on Michael. He should have this done in the next 4 or 5 laps. Catching Michael's one thing, Paul. Passing him is something completely different.
Back over in the pit area, Richie Hearn has climbed out of the car, and the car being taken back into the garage area, so Richie Hearn's season has started badly as well. Carpentier, you see, just came up on Fernandez. Now he's beginning to battle with him. Greg race into the corner. Oh. So Carpentier moves forward. He's just carving through this field. And Gary Gerald, what about Richie Hearn? Do we know what it is?
Yeah, Richie's out of the car. Richie, I assume this all related to the start of the race on the first lap?
No, I don't think so. We've been struggling with the car all weekend, and I think something broke in the under tray in the back of the car, and it was just extremely loose, and yeah, there's no point in being in everybody's way and endangering myself and everything. So we just have to do some more testing and you know, get a handle on it and get ready for Japan.
A couple of weeks ago, you had a big crash in testing, and I know you've been hurting. How are you feeling physically here as long as you were able to be on the track?
I feel all right. In the car, I feel fine, but, you know, outside the car, I'm a little sore, but, you know, it's not really a factor for me.
Okay, we look forward to better things in Japan. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Here's Michael Andretti, the fight for 5th now because Dario Franchitti is right there.
He came off that corner very slowly, Paul, like he had a big understeer towards the wall. He had to lift. Dario had a great run on him, but Michael dives back to the inside. He's taking the air off the front of the car of Dario. You can see how Dario has to fall back, but now he might be able to use the cars in front of him as a pick, just as we saw Patrick Carpentier do earlier to try to get around Michael Andretti.
Max Pappas now replacing Bobby Rahal at Team Rahal as Bobby moves over to sole ownership and observation and pit control, no longer behind the wheel. Pappas was 11th on the 37th lap, but up to 8th just a few laps ago. The head-on view for Michael Andretti, something you don't want to see in your rear view mirror. So Greg Moore is still the leader. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Speedway, the race stuttered to a start with an incident involving 5 different drivers and fractures to Naoki Hattori's lower left leg and Al Unser Jr.'s lower right leg. They have both been airlifted out of here. Greg Moore has led from the pole position. Adrian Fernandez had to hold off a charging Patrick Carpentier, and now Moore finds himself in the same position.
It's interesting to note, Paul, that in the middle of this battle is Juan Montoya, and I bet you right now he's not quite sure what he signed up for.
It's always interesting with a tremendous background that many of these drivers come to the series from, but if they don't have ovals, this can be an awesome learning day. Jan Bikas?
Well, towards pit in, Paul, which is the area that we are in at the moment, we are expecting some of the top teams, which would include Franchitti and also Helio Castroneves. In fact, Helio Castroneves' crew has just rolled out, so we're starting to see some of the pit stops, and I know for Neves, it's only going to be fuel and tires. They're not planning on changing a thing.
And for Greg Moore, we expect that they'll stagger the stop between he and Carpentier on different laps to give them as much room as possible. They're adjacent to each other on pit road. Moore should be the one who pits first.
That's just exactly what I was wondering, is what they will do about bringing those cars in. Theoretically, you don't want to bring them at the same time. Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt, Paul, but Robbie Gordon did come in for his stop, and he just stalled it. And now we have the opportunity to watch Helio Castroneves do his work, and Robbie Gordon was able to refire and get back underway. Again, like I said, for Helio Castroneves, they only expect to do tires and fuel, and it looks like all the practice so far this winter has paid off.
Boy, nice stop for the Lola Mercedes. Remember, too, these are the first stops of the year. These teams are a little bit rusty. So the times, theoretically, are going to get a little faster. And they just want to make sure there are no errors. D'Amata is in and out of the pits. But at the same time, Michel Jourdain's car still sits on the pit road. They've pulled the cowling off the back of the car, trying to figure out what's wrong there. Scott Pruitt, as he starts to dial down. Still, the leader stays out. Both Moore and Carpentier. That's Fernandez. One car back. Tony Kanaan is the car in between second and third place right now. Now we'll watch for Moore to start a turn down. He's expected in next lap. There he goes.
And Paul Dario Franchitti has just finished it. Wow, that was an 11-second pit stop for Dario Franchitti. These guys have really put that winter practice to work.
Yeah, I now take back what I said about them being a little rusty.
Well, we talked about them being a little rusty, but some of these guys have done 80, 90, 100 pit stops in preparation for this first race, Paul. So maybe a little performance anxiety, but I think that's about it.
First pit stop for Greg Moore.
And indeed, he hits those marks beautifully. They're also waiting in the pit behind him for Carpentier. We're going to look and see if they take a wing out, a turn up front. Watching, there's the twist up front. A handling characteristic change for Moore. He's throwing. Got him at just a fraction under 13 seconds here, Paul.
And two guys readjusting the wing at the same time. That's going to pick up some speed.
Well, what you saw there, Paul, is at the end of Greg's run, I'm sure that he had a little bit of understeer, so they just made that adjustment. Gary?
And now it's Carpentier's turn. The other side of Forsyth Championship Racing going to work. Boy, these guys have waited so long for this moment. Now it's their chance to shine. Can they gain ground in the pits? He's rolling. Great stop. Boy, he's flying.
Adrian Fernandez stayed out, in fact continues to stay out, picks up the lead of the race. 62 laps now complete. Michael Andretti assumes second place with these stops. Carpentier was able to come back out into third. Being an oval theoretically then, when Fernandez and Michael stop, gotta wonder where Carpentier is going to end up.
And now Adrian Fernandez heads down the pit lane. Michael should be in very, very soon since he has a similar Ford Cosworth power plant. And Gary will be there with Adrian Fernandez as he brings that 98 Renard down the pit lane.
And we're just arriving, somewhat out of breath. I think, did we beat him here? Yeah, by a moment. Long run. Now we see the nose of the car. A little problem with the bulky left front coming off a little slowly, but they get the other on very quickly. Wing changes up front as well. Wing changes up front. Now he's moving.
All the work was done before all the fuel was in, so that looks good for Adrian Fernandez. Michael Andretti picks up the lead, and here he comes for his service. Newman Haas crew is waiting.
Reset the fuel, Michael. Reset the weight jacker. Take 12 clicks to reset the jacker.
That's the voice of Ed Nethman, who's overseeing the technical direction for Newman Haas.
Go, go.
Ed Nethman, a former aerospace engineer, big-time race crazy nut, my engineer in 1996.
First stop for Montoya. He gets it in there safely, no problem. Or Vassar, I'm sorry.
Big wing change at the front there, Paul.
Boy, you got to be impressed with these first rounds of stops. All these teams appear to be flawless. That winter execution practice seems to be paying off.
Montoya was in and out. 20.8 seconds. A lengthy stop for Montoya. Now, Gil DeFerrin picked up the lead of the race. Remember, he stopped off the pace. He is now on the pit road, headed for service from Derek Walker's team.
Down to 60 miles an hour as he looks for his pit box.
How's that for a view?
I like it, Paul.
DeFerrin in. Tire change is complete.
These guys are good.
Boy, look at him pick out of there. Gil DeFerrin, again, it gives him a few laps benefit. He stops on the 66th lap.
It shows you the importance of teamwork. We always focus on the driver out there by himself, but he can't do it with some of the best guys in the business, and these guys are sharp.
So with only one caution thus far, the first pit stops are complete. 66 laps are done. And Dario Franchitti picks up the lead of the race at Homestead. We'll be right back. See the Goodyear blimp stars and stripes. Goodyear's overhead coverage, a continuing tradition that began in 1960 at the Orange Bowl right here in South Florida. Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. Dario Franchitti is the leader of the race. 70 laps complete. Michael Andretti with that great experiment in tires is up in second place. Greg Moore runs now in third. Patrick Carpentier is fourth. And Adrian Fernandez, who ran in second for a good part, is now back in fifth.
Well, the passing didn't happen on the racetrack. It happened in the pit lane. And that shows how important the teamwork of these pit crews are. Now, we see how busy the guys in the pits are, but the driver at the same time, Paul, when he comes down the pit lane, he's got to get the car on the marks, in position, reset the fuel counter, both sway bars, the weight jacker, and tell the crew any changes that he might need. Jan Beekes?
Well, another round of those pit stops and checking in with Dario Franchitti, our leader. We said it was an 11-second pit stop, which put him into the lead. And you would wonder, did they get all the fuel on board? The crew says yes. They were able to get the tires done and all the fuel on board and get that all done for the first stop of the year in 11 seconds. Pretty impressive.
Boy, that graphic showed you the difference right there. Exactly what you said, Parker. Look at the improvements that both Franchitti and Michael Andretti gained on the pit stop and how adversely it affected others.
That's right. And the key is also to turn very quick laps while your competitors are in the pits, and then getting up to speed as quickly as possible is very, very important. And both Dario and Michael was able to do that.
Well, we said we were going to keep track of Juan Montoya with our Toyota Spotlight. Let's take a look at how he did on the very first pit stop that he made.
That's good. Slow down, slow down, slow down.
It's difficult there, Paul. He came in, locked up the brakes on the polished concrete, having come off the asphalt. It's a typical rookie problem.
Tires are on. Fuel ready.
Oh! Well, there explains the lengthy pit stop. Started early, caught his guy. Remember the stop at 20.8. Boy, that was close. If he'd been digging harder, somebody would have been hurt.
And you can hear the reassuring voice of Tom Anderson trying to keep him calmed down, keep him focused and back on track. It's just one of a couple of stops. We've got a long season ahead, and that's part of the learning curve of being a rookie in the Champ Car Series.
Exactly, another lesson learned. Sometimes that can be so frustrating. We're going to go back, look at the battle for third and fourth. Greg Moore and teammate Carpentier. It's so frustrating for a new driver to the series who is so accustomed to doing very, very well elsewhere and suddenly finds that learning curve just took a major climb upward.
I think a lot of people underestimate how good these teams and these drivers are. They are the best in the world. They have to be good in 4 different disciplines on the short ovals, the super speedways, the road courses, and the street courses. And oval racing is a discipline all unto itself, and it takes some time to learn, Paul.
Everybody's in this fight. Moore, Carpentier surge forward. Fernandez is right there. Castro Neves is there as well. Now a battle for third that is trying to chase down the two at the front of the field, who are Franchitti and Michael Andretti.
We were able to see Moore take advantage of the traffic. Carpentier wasn't able to get through. Fernandez also got jammed up as Castro Neves got a run on him. Traffic, it's just draw, luck of the draw, Paul. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes against you. But now we see Carpentier trying to close down on his teammate again. as Adrian Fernandez is trying to work up back into that battle, but he's got to get past Michel Jourdain Jr. first.
Past the halfway point with 78 laps. Into the book now, counting down with 71 to go. Franchitti led 5 of the last 6 races in '98, which included wins in 3 of those races, but interestingly enough, all on road courses. Fernandez handles up some slower traffic, tries to rejoin the pursuit of Moore and Carpentier. Laps led by Tire Mix. Again, Firestone.
We're on board with Juan Montoya. You can listen how much he has to come out of the throttle because of the Under Series. He comes out of 3 and 4. Let's take a couple laps if we have the chance. Listen and watch rookie Juan Montoya.
Got a problem over in turn 2 as the yellow comes out.
Turn 2 up high.
Oh, and it's Scott Pruitt.
What a shame, Paul.
Pioneer car jumped up and caught the wall, rode along it for some distance. Safety team is there. Wheel comes off. We'll keep an eye on Scott now. RCR World's team with their first incident of the season. So Scott Pruitt catches the wall, brings out our second yellow of the day on the 81st lap. Dario Franchitti is still our leader. Back as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. Under this yellow, the leader and a number of others have decided to bring it in for service. Jan Beekes.
Yes, Dario Franchitti brings it to a stop, and it looked at first, Paul, as though he was the only leader. Well, he is, of course, the leader, but one of the top guys that would stop. I asked Kim Green why, and he said it's just our strategy. Let's get to Gary.
And of course, when the leader comes in, a lot of people follow suit, including Michael Andretti. They just told us moments ago they didn't plan to, but here they are, and he stalls it. They've got to back him up, engage the starter. The man who's won this race the last 2 years with a problem. Now he's refired and going.
And Gary, just to update the Franchitti stop, another 11 seconds here on pit road. These guys are on fire.
Well, except for Michaels, Moore in and out with 11 seconds, 11.1, the quickest of those 3 stops. The stall cost Michael Andretti another 6 seconds. So, with the second caution of the day, the reason that we are under this caution is impact with the wall involving Scott Pruitt.
You can see he's having a look down the inside of Mauricio Gugelmin here, Paul. They go down to turn 1. Scott's right down on the white line. He just got too far underneath. The car rotated and impacted the wall hard. That's the problem, is that there's a little bit of a dip right down on the apron, and if you get the left rear tire down on that dip over that white line, it turns the car straight around. That's what happened to Scott.
Well, he got out of the car pretty quickly. ABC Sports Road to the Visa Triple Crown Challenge continues Saturday at 2 Eastern with the GalleryFurniture.com Stakes in Turfway Park in Florence, Kentucky. So under the caution, the leaders at least make their stops, and the strategy begins to play out now with 64 laps to go. Finally, let's take a look at Michael Andretti. Remember, he won 2 years ago and then repeated that feat just a year ago. So back-to-back wins for Michael Andretti, and that was one terrific finish. Well, today, long pit stop.
Reset the fuel meter, reset the fuel meter. Go, 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 go.
And there's the stall. And now the clock is ticking, dead engine. Michael trying to get it going. They fire him, and he's underway. Seems like only a few seconds it is, but it's an eternity in the cockpit. Well, let's go back with the race recap. At the conclusion of the 90th lap, the leader in the Lola was Helio Castro Neves. Green race average has been at 188 miles an hour, and there are the cars that are out of the race. Now, one of those cars is the Focus of the gentleman just joined us here in the booth. That's the car driven for at least 2 turns by Raul Boisel, because Paul Tracy has joined us. The reason you're not in the car is you are serving out your suspension from last year at this race. Can you say that maybe that accident proves it's not you?
Well, it was definitely a frustrating day for the team, but I can honestly say this, that it's far less frustrating for us than it's been for Al and his whole family, what he's had to go through this winter. Me having to sit out the first race is really doesn't mean anything compared to what Al has to be going through, and all of our team, our hearts go out to him, and speedy recovery for his daughter Cody, and we'll see you guys hopefully in the next couple of races.
Absolutely, and well said. What about your situation now, just in terms of being a spectator? Pretty tough?
It's tough. I mean, I've been asked 1,000 times, how does it feel? And I think if one more person asked me how does it feel, I might kick them in the groin and tell them that's how it feels. But it's tough to sit here, but it's been an entertaining race. D. Ferran he's the big question mark here. The strategy is good. Pitting early on that first yellow, I think he is definitely very motivated from yesterday to prove something.
We come back to green. Hideo Castroneves is the leader in Carl Hogan's Lola, followed by De Ferran, Dario Franchitti, and Patrick Carpentier. Jan Beekes, can you update us?
I sure can on Carl Hogan. I asked him, well, you're in the lead now. Why did everyone else pit? And he shrugged his shoulders with a big smile and says, I have absolutely no idea. I am bewildered why they pit. They cannot make it to the end, and we're just going to wait till we have the opportunity. We're saving fuel, and we think that we're right where we want to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what Parker and I were talking about in the booth while we were waiting for them to come in. Why would they do it?
They can't make it to the end. The only thing they can hope for is a yellow. And that will only stretch the fuel mileage, but they have to come in.
All right, this is Patrick Carpentier. He came in directly into the pits rather than using the access road, so he had to make a pass through of the pits as a black flag penalty. Same for Robbie Gordon.
That's a big no-no. I mean, 60 miles an hour through the pit is a half a lap, so you can see the leaders are coming by the start-finish, and Patrick's on the back straightaway. He's about to be within a corner of being lapped, so that's pretty much effectively ended his day.
Yeah, Robbie Gordon was the other one that went through. Came in 19th, Jan Beekes.
Well, the reason he's back in 19th, Paul, is because they've had a problem with the seal on the rear air jack that raises the car. So they came in during the caution and spent a whole bunch of time here. They had to seal off the hose on the back of the car so at least the front two air jacks would work.
And that roll through the pits dropped him back yet another lap. He is now 5 behind the race. But, you know, Robbie has had a great attitude here all weekend. He seems to be enjoying the role with the ownership of the car, the relationship with Mike and with John Menard, and he really seems to be having a good time for a guy to come to the track with 0 testing time and a lot of work to do.
I know Robbie very well. He's a hands-on guy. He's always working on stuff. I've spent time hanging out with him. He loves to get his hands dirty, working on things, and this is probably the best opportunity for him because he's able to do what he wants to do without any question, and he's got some other partners that are going to let him kind of run the, hold the reins, and I think he enjoys it.
Watching here at the battle for the front. Now keep an eye on the 5 car. That's Gil De Ferran, second in that line, second in the race. There have been reports that that car may be bottoming and doing so heavily, so the officials are now focusing on that car under observation.
Well, that's a consequence of being on full tanks. They try to run these cars as low as they can to produce as much downforce as possible. As the fuel load burns, that car will naturally start to lift itself off the ground. And usually it's just a matter of dust coming off the skid block on the bottom, and that's all the officials are saying. But they'll keep an eye on it, and we'll keep you updated.
That's Tony Kanaan moving very, very slow.
Definitely has a problem.
As he heads out.
This could cause a yellow if he's not able to get around. So this could cause some pit stops here to happen.
And just now he rolls into an area that would put him in jeopardy on the race course. We'll keep an eye on him. And we look back to Jimmy Vasser being attacked by Max Pappas. The battle here is for 7th.
And on that last lap, Hideo Castroneves just turned the fastest lap of the race. But if they do throw a yellow, it'll be exactly what Patrick Carpentier needs to get back at the end of the field. We'll wait to see what the officials do and whether Tony pulls it off into the grass off the racing surface.
Tony's
right now, you'll get
really
a glimpse of him in a second. There he is. A really precarious position, I think. Jan Beekes?
According to the McDonald's crew, they say they believe that it is fuel. Just did not have enough fuel to get it back on pit road. Let's get to Gary.
And a quick update on Gilles de Ferran. Derek Walker says, we're not aware of any problem with the car bottoming. They like the way it's working. They know everybody's going to have to make one more stop before this is all said and done. And de Ferran, who remember started at the back of the pack after a crash in qualifying yesterday, during that last break, radioed in and said, this is turning out to be quite a fun race. Yeah, he's up there running for second. And as loose as the car was early in warm-up this morning, they are elated.
I can tell you what, I've been in the car, and that was a violent crash yesterday, and his ears have got to be ringing today, but he's doing a great job. Has driven the thing from the back of the field and is really putting on a show. Probably the class of the field.
And got him, wasn't able to qualify, got in a real slapper on the right side of the car. Most of the injury to his right elbow, he had it bandaged up good. Can't be too pleasant to be in there now, except for the fact you're sitting in second place. And just another note on Jill, he's the only guy to lead in all 4 of the champ races here at Homestead. You watch, though, what is a wonderful story as well with Helio Castroneves. Carl Hogan, the owner of this Lola machine. There's Carl. He keeps track of his car. And they're running in front. They're on a strategy. The race is now at 103 laps. They're in front and happy.
Small budget, not much testing. One of the few Lolas in the field. And here's Helio Castroneves turning the fastest race lap again at a 27.1, well over 200 miles an hour. I'm sure there's a big Brazilian smile inside that helmet. We still have 46 laps to go. We'll see what'll happen here, Paul.
We'll have to see what happens. Carl's had a lot of heartbreak in the last couple years. Dario leading at St. Louis and running out of fuel, having a gearbox problem. He's had his share of misfortune, and if they can pull it off, for not only for Carl but for Lola, that's a big statement.
And Paul Tracy, good to have you up here. Stick with us for a while as we watch Helio Castroneves lead Gilles de Ferran, and Dario Franchitti now is beginning to take a good look at the battle for the lead. We'll be back with more right after this. Celebrate Hollywood's main event. Oscar winner Gina Davis hosts the pre-show, and Oscar winner Whoopi Goldberg hosts the Academy Awards. ABC Sunday at the Oscars, live tonight. Second place behind Helio Castroneves is Gilles de Ferran. Strategy from the Walker team already playing. Every year he makes some picks for the Oscar. He's picked Private Ryan to win Best Picture. I'll go along with that. I look down the line of the booth and everybody else, I'm not risking anything. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
A couple of updates for you, Paul. First of all, Scott Pruitt. Of course, it's his accident that put Helio Castroneves in the lead. He has a bruised ankle. They want to ice it for about 20 minutes, and they will release him. And Helio Castroneves is going to be in here on lap 110. So that's only a lap or 2 from now. The leader should be on pit road.
Tony Kanaan finally has his car on pit road, but has climbed out of the car. So the assumption that addition to the Forsyth Championship Racing team may be done for the day. It certainly looks that way at the moment. We watch now for Castroneves to make an appearance on pit road. And at the Carl Hogan Racing team, de Ferran will pick up the lead of the race when that happens, followed by Franchitti and Fernandez. Quiet. Everybody seems to be just waiting separation back in the field. I think probably waiting to see how the tactics of this thing, as you suggested, Paul Tracy, are going to play out.
Oh, it really is. I'm sure that, Gilles and Dario, they're just pacing themselves right now, trying to make good fuel mileage so that if it goes yellow, they can have a fairly quick stop. So, here we go.
Got an engine going coming off at 2. At least and it's Fernandez.
It's Adrian Fernandez.
Oh, no. Fernandez is sitting in 4th place. Display a plume of vapor at the back of the car.
And he stays on the track going through 3
and the yellow comes
We've
out.
gone yellow, so here's where the race is going to start right now.
And he's lost
He
it.
loses it.
Adrian spins in his own oil through 3 and 4 and makes contact with the outside wall.
Boy, I was surprised. Yeah, exactly. Pound that wheel. Why didn't he get it down and get it stopped?
I was very surprised, Paul. He missed the pit in as he came down the chute on the back straightaway, continued on the racing line through 3 and 4, and then spun in his own oil and made contact with wall on the outside of turn 4.
Exactly, but the question is, if you knew that plume was there, and that's making a big assumption, then you got to think there's oil there, and maybe I ought not to be running all the way out there. I ought to get this thing way down as soon as I can.
Well, as much as his speed had dropped off, he had to know that something was wrong.
He's upset, too. You can see the disappointment. He's, maybe should have brought it in the pit, you know, the day was over, so might as well come in.
Yeah, too bad for Adrian Fernandez. That's going to be a tough blow for that operation. Here it is, Parker.
Now, he's already missed the pit in. You can see that lower on your screen. He's driving down the inside, gets in his own oil, turns it around, locks the brakes up here on the front, but it's too late. There's no way he's going to get it back and makes contact with the wall. Gives you an idea of how fast these cars are going. He had slowed down a lot, still made heavy contact with the outside wall.
Well, and the point is, though, that the first real show of vapor at the back of the car came over off at turn 1. This is in turn 4.
That's right, and what the problem that we've got now is that he oiled the exit of turn 2, and here we see him coming off at turn 2. It's real obvious that the motor's gone south. You can see the streak of oil on the track there. He continued through 3 and 4 until he spun and contacted the wall there, Paul.
Jan Beekes?
Well, we talked about Tony Kanaan, Paul, that he climbed from the car. Was it fuel?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. The number and the dash was right. I mean, we had like probably 10 more laps on them, but something went wrong, and unfortunately, we had to stop.
The conditions right now on the track?
It's very, very, very hard. Low grip, a lot of understeer on traffic. The car is bad for everybody. It's very loose because they take the wind out of the front of the car. So it's been hard. It's hard to drive. It's a hot day. Unfortunately, you know, for the McDonald's it's done today, but we're going to come back to Montigny.
Tough way to start the season. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice guy, though, Tony Kanaan, out of the race early. So the caution flies for the 3rd time of the day at the Homestead Miami Speedway, and Helio Castroneves is still the leader. We'll be back. To the pilots and crew of the Goodyear Blimp Stars and Stripes for these aerial shots, looking down on Adrian Fernandez. Back in 1926, when Goodyear began its first commercial blimp operation with the blimp Pilgrim. Now let's go to Jan Beekes.
We're waiting for the leader on pit road. Helio Castroneves is going to be here any moment. And again, they're hoping that they'll just be able to do fuel and tires. Now, there's no one around him because he's near pit in. Wheels come to a stop. We start the watch. And this is when the guys need to not try to go too fast. The trick to making a fast pit stop is just taking your time, one thing at a time. They're waiting for the fuel. 12-7. Let's get to Gary.
Jill DeFerrin in, quick stop, big change on Stagger, the rear tires. He's out of here. I haven't seen. There comes the Hogan car. He got out ahead of Helio Castroneves.
There's a good example of the teamwork, Paul. Dario Franchitti.
I don't mean to crow, but the team pool green smoked him on that one. It was a big pit stop for the team, and this could be the defining moment of the race.
Could well be, because Franchitti got rolling well ahead of both other cars, and even given the pit distance, was in great shape by the time he got to the end of the pit lane.
Barry Green is very strict about the pit stops. We have a car in our shop that just sits there alone on jacks, and the crew has to practice 5 times a day, every day throughout the winter, their pit stops. They've really honed their pit stops this winter. The guys are in great shape. They've been working out, and it showed today.
And for most of the top teams, that's become the standard drill now because of situations just exactly like that it makes a world of difference, especially on the oval. So Greg Moore, for the moment at least, picks up the lead, 115 laps complete. We'll be back after these messages and a word from your ABC station. Speedway, Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. We're still under the caution. Greg Moore is the leader of the race, and here is our field summary as it stands at the moment. Strategy, though, is getting to be really cool at this point, and one of those reasons is because they may think that Moore is getting great fuel mileage. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, as you well know, on Friday, a tremendous incident, one of the heaviest impacts that we've ever witnessed in one of these champ cars, occurred in turn 4. Shigeaki Hattori had just a hellacious hit. In fact, the G's were measured at over 140. I can never remember a hit with that high of a number. They have those impact recorders on board. But amazingly enough, after an overnight stay in the hospital, Shigeaki, who was driving for Tony Bentonhausen's team, is back here at the track. He is feeling just fine. You doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
We are so happy because it was a tremendous impact, and this young man, wanting to have a future with champ cars coming from the Indy Lights ranks, is hoping that he'll get an opportunity shortly to get back on board. We're happy to see him here, Paul, after that big hit.
Gary Gerald, while we have you, the story on Greg Moore, great fuel mileage on the leader?
Well, I just talked with Neil Mickelwright just a few moments ago, and I asked him, how far can you go before you have to come in and get a splash? And he said, we are okay. We don't have to come in. I'm thinking, man, they're getting great fuel mileage. I'm surprised. Jan Beekes?
Well, Gary, the Hogan crew figures no way can Greg Moore make it to the end, and they pointed out that the reason that their pit stop did take a little bit longer, even though Paul Tracy pointed out they were smoked by Team Cool Green, was because they needed more fuel. The other guys were out of sequence. They didn't need as much fuel in the tank, and of course that's the limiting factor on how fast you can pit. They say now, of course, they have plenty of fuel to make it to the end, and they're instructing that there's only a couple guys ahead of Helio that they think are going to be able to make it to the end, and Greg Moore was not one of them.
31 laps remain. This is getting very neat now. The tactics of this thing are going to be awesome. Thus far, we've had 7 changes among 7 drivers. That's a new record for the number of changes, and ties for the number of leaders. Michael Andretti, there he is. Nice head-on view. That's what you look like when we have that head-on.
Head-on in the Swift. What is interesting, thinking back to the Fernandez crash, that is a team that's primarily running a Swift.
Yes.
They've been using a Reynard for the first couple races. It'll be interesting to see what they do for Japan, whether they go back to the Swift, because Reynard is probably pretty reluctant to sell them parts since they're a Swift team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for them testing-wise in the next couple weeks.
On the backstretch, they're ready to go back to green. Robbie Gordon, by the way, is officially retired from the race as well. Moore picks up the pace. Michael Andretti is right there, as is Vassar, Pappas, Blundell, and D'Amata. They have not stopped.
This looks like last year.
Boy, doesn't it? Switch of positions. But having said they haven't stopped, the next question is, do they, and when?
Michael Andretti looking for clean air there as they went down into turn 1, looking to the inside. We're right on board.
I tell you, Michael has had great luck here. He had a bad pit stop. He's recovered from that. Might be in position here to win the race. You know, as a race goes on, he's a lot more experienced than the rest of these guys and can really put the pressure on when it counts.
Approaching 220 miles an hour down into turn 1. The drivers are experiencing about 4.4 G sustain through these 4 corners. Hard on the throttle, the Cosworth winding up, approaching 15,000 RPM as he heads down to turn number 3.
As we watch the fight for the lead, bitter disappointment for Adrian Fernandez, Gary Gerald.
Yeah, Adrian is back with his crew. Adrian, the question we're wondering about, were you aware the motor was going away, and why didn't you pull down off the track?
I had no idea. For me, the engine was running fine, and suddenly the yellow came. I came into turn 3 and 4, and I slowed down as normal, and suddenly just the car completely spun on me, and I thought I hit some oil or something on the track. I mean, that's what I thought, because I said maybe that was the reason for the yellow, but there were no prevention for me to do anything. So if it was the engine, I didn't know.
As you go to Japan, do you know, will you stay with the Reynard chassis that you won with a year ago?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this car was running really good. I mean, the Patrick Racing team was really doing a great job with this car. I think we had a car to win the race at the end, because we were just cruising around, trying to save the tires for the end. But I mean, I was picked up, and it's just a shame, but you know, things happen.
Thank you, Adrian. Jan?
Well, Robbie Gordon has also climbed from his car. And Robbie, we reported that it was first an air jack. Was it the air jack that put you out?
Sorry, Jan, I didn't get a chance to hear you there.
Was it the stuck air jack that actually put you out?
We had a couple other problems. We were very loose from the beginning. You know, one way to look at it, we can only go up from here. Had a pretty bad day.
All right, well, hope you have better luck in Japan. Paul?
Franchitti handles up D'Amata for 6th place. The battle of the lead now. Michael Andretti is beginning to tug on that rope connected between he and Moore. It's gone from 8.5 tenths down into the 7s, and then now it's just jumped up a bit. But Michael's very definitely there and on the fight. Paul Tracy, we know you're going to want to keep track of Cool Team Green here. Thanks for spending the time up in the booth with us, and from now on we want to see you down there.
Well, that's where I want to be. This is the last place I want to be, is standing beside you, Paul, but I'd rather be down in the car, and you know, I think we've got a great chance for Japan, and hopefully we can get it done there.
Was that a shot? Was that
a little bit? A little bit.
Well, okay, we're going to get you out of the booth without an accident
Okay.
up here. Okay, thanks for coming up.
Okay,
You're a
thank
good
you.
man. Greg Moore is the leader. Michael Andretti second. Jimmy Vassar third. Fuel is the story. Who can make it to the finish? Paul Page with Parker Johnstone, Jan Dekus, Gary Gerald. We're at the Homestead Miami Speedway as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. 22 laps to go. A wonderfully tactical race now. Who can go and how far can they go? Nothing's changed since we've left you. Greg Moore is still the leader. Michael Andretti second. Jimmy Vasser is third. Pappas is fourth. Mark Blundell is fifth. The question is, all of those cars which have not been recently in the pits, how far can they carry this run? We're in the closing laps with just 21 to go.
It's interesting to watch this, Paul. Greg Moore driving a little bit more on the high side. Michael going in very early, both in turns 1 and 3. Most drivers will tell you this is a one-lane racetrack, but it doesn't look like Michael Andretti agrees. Look at him go down to the inside there as we ride along with him. He's right on the white line. Still has a lot of understeer in that car, and he's just trying to figure out how to make a move on Greg Moore.
Max Pappas, Mark Blundell is there now working their way up along with Franchitti. Pappas sits in fourth, then Franchitti, then Blundell. Blundell just a little off to the right, very definitely part of this run.
Paul, sorry to jump in, but I believe that Helio Castroneves has just had an engine problem. He went down the front straightaway, and you can hear the sound. Something is not right with that car.
Well, with the stop and his problems, he's dropped back to 10th place. Almost 8 seconds behind the lead of the race. Keep an eye on him.
Look at this battle, Paul. We've got Vasser, Franchitti, and Pappas up behind Alex Barron. The cars throw so much turbulence up in the air, you can only get within a few car lengths unless you have a very definite superior handling car. And that's what we're seeing is this aerodynamic buffeting, limiting the driver's ability to get right back up on the gearbox of the car in front of them.
Back with Montoya, he runs in 14th. He's lost 2 laps to the remainder of the race. Jimmy Vasser was beginning to receive a challenge by Franchitti just a few seconds ago. And Greg Moore is still the leader, followed by Michael Andretti. What about Montoya, Gary Gerald?
Well, we're hearing that there may be a possible problem with the engine in the power plant department. He continues to stay on track. His teammate Vasser, we were checking with him, running in 3rd place. They say he has enough fuel. Max Pappas, we just talked with Tim Cindric, who's managing that team, the Rahal team. Pappas in 4th, and he said it's going to be very, very close on fuel for Pappas.
17 laps remain. On board with 2nd place, Michael Andretti.
As we watch this, Paul,
past 2 years.
You can see as he goes into the corner how high that dark line is up to the right side of the car. That's where everybody else is driving. Now watch as we come down into turn 1. Watch how early he turns in. Look how high the groove is up to his right. Michael's got something figured out. He does this also at Milwaukee, I've noticed over the years. But that seems to be where the Swift Ford is working the best. We've got some other great battles behind him. We've got Blundell and Pappas working hard, as well as DeFerrin and Cristiano D'Amata. But as we ride along, watch Michael Andretti driving where no one else dares go at this stage of the race.
Brian Herta just brought the Shell car, and he was running in 12th, 1 lap behind the race.
Well, we're watching as they service Herta's car, top him off with fuel. Should have him underway momentarily.
More than Andretti, then Vasser, then Franchitti. It drops off a little bit.
Well, I think what we're
seeing
seeing
1.3
is that Michael's car's picked up even more of an understeer, and that's what's causing him to go down lower and lower. Typically, if the car's oversteering you right around the top of the groove, Michael's keeping the car down low so that he can get on the power as soon as he can coming off the corner. That's going to be his limiting factor for trying to catch Greg Moore and getting a lot of straight line speed coming off of turns 2 and turns 4.
Helio Castroneves slows on the front stretch, gets the car down off the track onto the exit road. There he is. Keep an eye on this track, and you'll see 2 entirely different black lines of groove. The reason for that is that the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series ran here yesterday, and they run a diamond pattern, and that lays a different groove, and it's upset the plans of a number of the IndyCar teams. They weren't really very happy with it. There you see the interval. 1st to 2nd, Moore to Andretti. Jimmy Vasser just behind this. 1.112 laps left to go. We'll be back. Back at Homestead, Helio Castroneves, the Hogan car, the Lola that was doing so well earlier, now has a problem as he begins to show vapor at the back of the car. You saw just a couple of moments ago, he pulled off the course. Nothing has changed on the track. We're still under green with 11 laps remaining. Greg Moore is the leader. Michael Andretti second. Jimmy Vasser third. Will this bring out a yellow? I don't think so. He's back onto the pit road, so it should not.
What a shame for this Hogan Racing team. They've done so well. They led this race comfortably. They commanded it, and now Motors let go for that.
Again, traffic is the problem. Moore comes around Vitolo. Michael Andretti will engage him shortly. Interval also stretches back a bit now, 1.4 seconds.
The only thing Michael Andretti can do at this point, Paul, is to make sure that he's got everything in his control, which are the sway bars inside the car and the weight jacker. These are devices used to change the lateral stiffness of the car and the corner weights of the car to try to make sure that car is as well balanced as possible. Now, on the onboard camera, we haven't seen him adjusting anything. There are a number of buttons and switches on the steering wheel that allow him to control the weight jacking device. Down at his left hand are the anti-roll bars, which control the stiffness of the chassis, both at the front and the rear of the vehicle. Michael seems to be content with the way the car is working that low line all the way through turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, as you mentioned earlier, the trucks have run here, and Michael is using that truck line on the entry of turn 1 and turn 3. So I think there's a little bit of NASCAR in Michael Andretti.
8 laps remain. Michael Andretti has won the last 2. He is in second, chasing Greg Moore. Back in third place, Jimmy Vasser. And there is the interval between Andretti and Vasser.
Paul, for Vasser, they're keeping a very tight eye on that fuel, but as one of the crew team reported, nobody's panicking yet. 8 laps to go.
Well, we're going to carry all the way through the finish of this race. It's only 7 laps to go. I can guarantee you, there's some folks up and down pit road holding their breath, looking at the calculators and computers again and hoping, boy, I hope this calculation is right on fuel.
Well, I think they not only have a fuel problem. If you listen to Jimmy getting back on the throttle coming out of turns 2 and 4, he's got a little bit of a hesitation. Listen, you can hear it just there, Paul. And Paul Tracy and I were talking during the break. We were surprised with all the testing that Team Ganassi has done that Jimmy Vasser hasn't moved forward more sooner in the race. But now we see Dario Franchitti coming up right behind Jimmy Vasser, and Jimmy's having a problem getting off turn 2, Paul.
Yeah, Franchitti is right there now. In fact, we hope we can keep an eye for him. There he is, just off the right rear. Moore, the leader, picked up 2.4 over Michael on the last lap. So Michael now struggling to keep up with the leader. Look at this. Franchitti tries to move to the inside, uses the toe. They sweep into the corner together, and Franchitti moves forward, picks up third place. 5 laps to go.
We can pick that up on the onboard, Paul. If you can't get back on the throttle with confidence, it's going to kill your straight line speed. And Dario's had great corner exit all day long. He used that to his advantage, waited for the right time, pulled the move, got him cleanly going from start finish down into turn 1. Jimmy didn't give up easily, but he had to yield eventually because Dario just had too much speed.
First, second, there's third. You see the interval as they head into turn 1 with 4 remaining. Again, 4 miles. They're burning that methanol fuel down, taking the tank down to fumes. Remember, too, new cars, first race of the season. They may not have practiced getting it all the way empty. They may not be able to get all the fuel out of the tank, even if they have enough. Those are all worries that are going through the pit crew's minds right now. Interval at the front, stretched out.
At this moment, Jimmy doesn't have to worry about being attacked from behind. Max Pappas is a good 6.7 seconds behind him. But Dario now is trying to set his sights on Michael Andretti. Remember, Paul, there's bragging rights. You may not be able to win the race, but being up on the podium is worth its weight in silver or gold, as the case may be. And that's what Dario's looking for.
Greg Moore now using every inch of this race course to keep speed and momentum up with 2 laps to go. He is the leader, followed by Michael Andretti, the winner of the past 2 races here at Homestead. And as he comes off the corner, Michael closes. Still, it's going to be a very dicey last lap. I don't think he can do it. 1.9 seconds was the interval across the line as the white flag comes out. There's Michael Andretti in pursuit now. But remember, if the engine would falter at this moment, things could change. Oh, what a great gamble they've taken. And it looks like, in fact, it may pay off. Greg Moore up off of turn 3, now off of 4. Looking at the checkered flag. The gamble pays off. Greg Moore takes his 5th career win. His 4th on an oval. Now we're going to take it back. 2nd comes across, 3rd. Look at this battle for 5th. That's Pappas, then DeFerrin, and then Patrick Carpentier. And that's the way they come to the line. Well, the first race of the season is now complete. It stumbled to a start. Of course, Al Unser Jr. and Naoki Hattori both suffering fractures in an accident on the first lap, and it ends with a very, very tactical race. And Forsyth Championship Racing taking the win with Greg Moore. Michael Andretti in 2nd. These are unofficial. Dario Franchitti is 3rd. Then Jimmy Vasser, Max Pappas, Jill DeFerrin, Patrick Carpentier.
And there's your race winner turning into victory lane.
Shows you how close this series is, Paul. It's Mercedes, Ford, and Honda across the stripe in just over 2 seconds. It's going to be a great season, no doubt. With all the talk of Newman Haas Racing switching over to Firestone tires, they took a gamble. It worked, as you said. Michael Andretti in 2nd place. The longest run they've ever done on Firestone tires. Not bad for a first run.
That, by the way, is the 19th win in a row for Firestone. As Greg Moore now undoes the helmet and begins to celebrate victory in the first race of the season. And let me tell you, finishing in the top 5 has been absolutely critical to winning the championship in the past 4 or 5 years. So the unofficial results: Greg Moore takes the pole. That's what the P stands for. The L tells you he led the most laps, and he takes the win. You look down through the rest of the field in a race that did have some considerable attrition, especially right there at the start. But Greg Moore has taken the victory at Homestead Miami Speedway. We'll be back and talk with our newest champion in the Kart FedEx Championship Series right after this. We gave you the top 15. Now we give you the full field rundown and the medical update. Naoki Hattori has suffered fractures to his left lower leg. Al Unser Jr. to his right lower leg. They are still being evaluated as to the severity of those fractures. Greg Moore, he's in winner's circle, and he is ecstatic, Gary.
Yes, indeed, Paul. We watch from the opposite side. They've got a rostrum over here now and a new bit of ceremony that will be introduced to the finish of these events. Greg will be up here momentarily, and we'll have an opportunity to get a word with him. And Greg, this is one of those ideal ways to start the season. I don't imagine you could be happier, but what we're wondering, how much of a gamble was it in terms of the fuel in the last few laps? Were you nervous?
I was running the leanest that I could for a while, and then they kept telling me to bring it off, bring it off, bring it off. And, you know, my guys, the whole players team, I mean, Alex deserves a big pat in the head for this one. He's our fuel guy, and I mean, what an awesome job. I mean, for everybody here, just first race of the year, you know, this place, almost like it owed us something, and we finally got it. I mean, it's a good job for everybody.
Have you been feeling any kind of pressure because so many people have said you and your team are top championship caliber material for 1999?
Well, I think this just shows that we're going to be good on the ovals. It's just a question now what happens on the street and the road circuits, but I firmly expect once we get to Long Beach, we'll surprise a lot of people. But, I mean, what a perfect day. I mean, I was a little worried there because Dario was running so strong, but then he came in. He wouldn't gamble on that fuel, and I had confidence in my guys. It's just a great day for everyone here at the players team.
Anybody, any time on the racetrack, did you encounter difficulty, apprehension, something that maybe kind of brought your heart up close to your throat?
The first stint with my car was extremely loose, and you know, all I could do was just hang on. You know, I kept Pat behind me, but he was awfully strong, and too bad for him. It could have been a good players one too, but most importantly is I won.
Indeed, and what a way to start a championship chase. You only got, what, 19 more to go?
Exactly.
Well, the Target teammates had a nice ride today. Jimmy Vasser, good run at the end, but then Franchitti put a move on you. Was that a case where you were saving fuel?
A little bit of that, and yeah, I was out on tires for a long time, over 60 laps, so he had fresher rubber, and he was hooked up all day, and you know, I got a little bit bogged down coming off of 4, trying to get around Michel Jourdain, and you know, Dario had a good run today, and he had a better car than me at the time, so it was a good move he made. So you know, I'm happy, all things considered. to come away with some decent championship points.
Yeah, I guess that's the key. If you're going to repeat in the championship every race, you got to get some points. Now, for you, you got some points as well. Your ride today, your first rookie run, how'd you feel?
I'm happy, you know. We had some problems even from the beginning of the race. The car was really losing the first run. You know, like 5 seconds of the pace, and I couldn't even drive the car, you know. I was just asking, please, come, I want to come in because this is dangerous. But no, you know, the team after that did a great job and make the car quite good. And at the end, we were very quick, I think.
And again, the Target team has the reliability. Both guys come home with all 4 wheels in the car.
And they're both smiling. Now, the next run is the Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. And we will have coverage, of course, of the Firestone Firehawk 500K on ESPN. And then it's back to the United States. The Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach will have that coverage right here on ABC Sports on the 18th of April as CART is ready to do it in the streets once again. Good day. Started off a little slow, but then finally they got going and it turned into a wonderful tactical race. Paul Page for Parker Johnstone. We hope that you have enjoyed your time with this, the first race of the season. For our final Toyota Spotlight, we take a look at some of the key moments of this race. Now, let's go to our Wide World of Sports studio in New York and John Saunders.